Your cries and screams are music to my ears when I tell you that the Cybertron scenes in Transformers Bumblebee weren't my favorite parts of the movie. This is internet personality Vangelus, and I dug those scenes a ton, but without the actual solid adventure film outside of them, I wouldn't be as eager to handle more high-end pieces from that movie like ThreeZero's DLX Soundwave. This was provided by ThreeZero for the purposes of review, and reviewing's what we're about to do, because that's what the video title says. You know why you're here, right? DLX Soundwave is particularly interesting, as this is a character model that we barely saw from more than one angle in his collective sub-20 seconds of screen time, and as a licensed piece, ThreeZero had access to assets that make this figure double as one of our best three-dimensional and physical looks at this shamelessly nostalgia-baiting redesign. Soundwave's silhouette is fascinating in how much it's built around the fact that he's got a payload storage chasm in his chest. The boots are beefy. There's a hunch to his back to accommodate his own cyberlogical internal organs around whatever may lurk within his torso, and he's got the wide, slopey thighs of a bot who's constantly carrying a weighted passenger inside of his inverted pectoral papoose. Meaty chunks of leg, dummy thick slabs of appendage that can clap out a deafening sonic boom. His head is a lovely marriage of busier live-action aesthetic with bold cartoony shapes, eschewing the weirdly toothy faces of previous iterations while maintaining some pointier tips up top. As per DLX line standards, you can pop his cap off to install a pair of LR44 batteries in order to provide a warm and menacing crimson glow to his oddly tasty-looking optic strip. While this is not a remold of DLX Optimus Prime, which seemed to be a startlingly non-rare speculation about the piece, his hand swaps are quite similar in that the stock of the ball joint connection is also hinged, so be aware of what directions your applied pressures are aligned with. The hand swap options are also quite similar to Optimus in that they are fists, calm open hands, splayed open hands, weapon gripping hands, and the command hand, which I guess you could play pretend as being a stylish pressing of one's own buttons. The weapon, by the way, is a sonic cannon with a little diddly-twiddly thingamy on its back corner. Hooray! Soundwave also includes the same stand seen on other DLX Transformers releases, as well as a folded mass within his chest cavity. If you pull it out, you reveal what appears to be a 5-sided semi-cube of printed card detail, which keeps the cavity smooth while filling it with visual busyness if you peek inside while it's empty. The printing is even dual-sided, which can be seen if you use one of the shoulder joints in a certain outward, sort of armpit-revealing kind of way. The vaunted foldable Ravage, though. Licensed third-party Transformers pieces often bear the burden of a no-conversion caveat, but Soundwave has now twice skirted that restriction via a quote-unquote folding partner accessory. The first time was on that mega giant 18-inch Soundwave with a laser beak, and I think it came out. I actually should check that. Oh, who cares about accuracy when we've got Ravages to unfold? What really surprised me with ThreeZero's Ravage is just how much he transforms, with some smart tab slot placements and even some telescoping pieces. This doesn't feel like a fragile amateur hour side project. This feels like the work of folks who themselves enjoy a fun folding time with a convertible robot figure. There are 3 additional pieces that need to be added on after the fact, and at a glance, I can't really see how they could have been jammed into the transformation without an unacceptable degree of visual compromise, like the rockets being tiny or the thing on the back of his head making more of his back cluttered in some way. Maybe that could have been in there. I don't know. They probably tried. They must have tried. I have no idea. But in the end, you get a really nice and palm-friendly representation of Ravage from his handful of seconds of screen time in that one scene where he makes that one noise after Soundwave says the thing. I'm tickled to giggles by the inclusion of this little death kitten as a foldable accessory. It's the good kind of skirting of the rules. Now, there is a par to articulation in ThreeZero's DLX line, and Ravage does not actually hit it up very well. It's not horrible, but I'll show you. There's a hinge here for the tail. There's a ball socket connection at the top of the rear hips, and a ball socket connection at the top of the front hips. Lets you wiggle out about that far and, kick forwards and backwards. Those transformation joints for encrookading the legs can go forwards again a little bit. That's the whole range, though. Back here, this is the whole range, and then down here on the ankle, that's the whole range. Over here, you can't actually move it forward anymore. You can just straighten it like that. So that's the range. And on the foot, that's the range. There are no swivels inside these limbs, I think partly due to the telescoping bit of the transformation, which kind of limits a lot of the articulation here. There's no torso joint either. This bit can wiggle. You know, you can get the little launcher to poke up. The head can look up and down on two different joints. You can open and close the mouth. The head cannot look left and right. So Ravage basically has a high-end version of G1 Ravage's articulation, kind of, where everything can move in, like, this axis, less so in this axis, which means Ravage is, ostensibly at the end of the day, still an accessory more so than a second figure. There are a couple poses you can get out of Ravage, just enough for me to still feel like, alright, that's cool, but boy do I wish the head could look left and right. And I've checked to see if I'm missing anything. I don't think I'm missing anything, and that was a bit of a bummer. Let that not, however, distract from the usual lovely show to be found in DLX Soundwave, a usual lovely large DLX robot. Actually, let's start off with this thing, though. This shoulder cannon can swivel around left and right, and then its connector joint down there can pan left and right, and there is a hinge in the middle of it. So that means, whilst there are only the three joints in tandem, I feel they offer a surprising amount of range, and dynamic range at that, for Soundwave's shoulder thingamy. He's got a ball socket head and a ball socket collar, as is standard on the line, with his neck mush being able to jostle around in there. His shoulders can, of course, move forwards and backwards. If you move this thing up, you can see that they can move outwards, and then perhaps you can even see that when they're in focus, they can move outwards again to reveal that armpit detail. There's a bicep swivel. The elbow bends a whole lot in two spots, and the wrist is a high-range ball socket with a small rockable joint at the base of the ball socket. Really good stuff throughout the arms. Torsonomically, there's actually a bit of limitation in here. In context of DLX, you're gonna think I'm a lunatic for saying that as you see how everything moves, but his mid-torso joint allows him to rock left and right like this. The limitation is that he can't lean it back. There's a huge chasm in here, and I think this was the price paid, is that there's nowhere for revealed detail to really exist up here. However, there is still plenty of revealable detail back here in the spinal cord and all of that good stuff. There's still some of that good stuff going on back here. As for turning left and right, this is where things get a touch complicated. So you've got a lot of mush down here. These white pieces are ball socketed up into a ball that's sticking down off the top. You really gotta move those out of the way before you start moving waist stuff, or they'll pop off. They pop back on easily enough, but the way you move them out of the way is on this double-hinged blue piece here. So basically, before you mess with him kicking his legs or turning at the waist, you gotta move those out of the way to make room for the turning to happen. It's very easy to forget to do that and have one of these white bits pop off, and then you gotta stick it up back onto the ball joint. Back here, there are also some butt skirts to worry about, although you don't have to worry about them nearly as much, since they're mostly for if you're kicking the legs back. But they're there. And then on the sides of his legs, there are some more double-jointed panels that come out like this. These are also a rather bit key, because when they're up here, they are in position to bump into stuff pretty easily. So I would say before you get into any dynamic posing with DLX Soundwave's legs and his waist, move all of this stuff out of the way, get him into, a posture that you like, and then push him back down. They will not really automatically get out of the way of anything. The small upside of an exploded crotch view is it lets me show you that hip mechanism that we saw on DLX Optimus, where the leg can move forward and backwards on its base axis, but then that axis has some detented repositioning on a separate joint, which you can kind of see in here, and there's the trail that it follows, the track, if you will. So it's kind of Figuarts hips-ish, whereby you can change the axis of the front leg so that you can get some full-on kicking, regardless of where it is, although it's easier actually if it's down here. You also have fully outwards leg motions for them big splits and them big high kicks, and a fully delicious double-jointed knee with full-on mechanics just happening all over the place. We'll get into a rear view of this as well, just to make sure you can appreciate all of that interlinked articulation, engineering pornography that we got going on. Pornography, by the way, a word not for kids. Neither is this review video. Thought you thought I forgot to say it, didn't you? Also, there's a thigh swivel going on up here. This is the range of it. And on the sordid topic of feet, the feet can swivel left and right. They can tilt forwards and backwards. And those are two separate joints, I believe. That's what it feels like to me. And the toe joint can do its toe thing just a little bit. Just enough for that one walking forward pose you really want to do, as well as there being some ankle tiltage. Just enough for that one calm A stance. There is not an extreme ankle tilt going on this fella. But if you pull everything down, you can see a nice semi-exposed view of all them die casts in there. Articulation on DLX Soundwave is still very good. It's just probably the most limited of the DLX line, and I get the impression that a great deal of that comes from the highly interwebbed greebliness of his slopey outer thighs and button-loaded crotch, as well as the big hole in his chest. The important statement is that DLX Soundwave lives up to the standard of ThreeZero's DLX Bumblebee offerings, so if you're keeping up with that line, there are no major disappointments to be had here. Beyond that, Soundwave brings 2 ups and 2 downs. Up 1. Ravage is a fantastic partner piece, with a transformation beyond the station of a licensed third-party piece like this package. Down 1. I'm bummed out that Ravage feels so limited as an articulated figure, mostly because of a few key limitations that don't seem like they'd have run into conflict with that aforementioned unfolding transformation. Down 2. Soundwave's crotch and thighs are much more fiddly than I expected, creating an odd theme of DLX Decepticons being a touch less straightforward to mess with than B or Prime. Up to, this may well be the most screen-accurate Bumblebee movie Soundwave figure that will come out in the foreseeable future, effortlessly dodging any conversionless disappointment for me since he never had an alt mode to speak of. I do believe there is a licensed model kit and an unlicensed transforming figure on the horizon as well, and I'm absolutely gonna eye them up too, but I also don't find the prospect of this robot folding into an alien boombox to be tremendously engaging. Are these ups and downs a little tunnel-visioned and petty? Absolutely, but I don't feel there's much else to be said that hasn't been laid out in my previous DLX Bumblebee coverage pieces. This is a damn solid high-end figure line that is also playable for the most part, and some of the strongest bang for your buck you'll find in its collectible subgenre of licensed movie mechanoids. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and be sure to hit up some previous DLX coverage if this is your first time tasting this channel. Hear me utter the name of Chemical Attack many times in previous videos, and I just did it here. Many pointed thanks to all my supporters on Patreon who maintain a specific feed of xenomorphic audio cassettes into my own chest cavity. Without them, I wouldn't have tapes in my body, and then where would I be? Where would I be?